Because
of your OCD? Told me I needed to calm down. Yeah. But I'm perfectly calm. I'm calm all the time. And he really stresses me out. And this is a rough morning.
Well, why don't we do this? Why don't I sit you down in the back seat of my car? You're not in any trouble, okay? I'm not going to be putting handcuffs on you. You obviously don't have any weapons. I'm going to get you into the air conditioning, let you take a breath, relax a little bit, and then I'll come back and talk to you in a few minutes, okay?
Okay.
Alrighty. Like I said, you're not in any trouble. So just go ahead and take a seat. Watch your feet. What's that?
You talked to Gabby already?
Yeah, I just spoke.
We pause at 4 minutes and 49 seconds. The first police officer returns to the van. A park ranger has now turned up, and he's talking to Brian Laundrie. A second police officer has just arrived. You should observe that Brian Laundrie's first words to the first police officer are, "Have you spoken to Gabby already?" Note, he hasn't asked, "How is she?" Hasn't said, "Oh, this is nothing between us, honestly, it's nothing to worry about." There's an absence of emotional empathy, because he shows no concern for how she is. He shows no interest in how she's doing. She was visibly upset, shaking, showing anxiety, but he simply doesn't care. That's because he has no emotional empathy. And instead, his narcissism's first instruction to him is to compel him to ask, "Have you spoken to Gabby already?" This is because it is narcissism trying to assert control by information obtainment. It's trying to find out what has actually been said so that he can then be able to respond to it. He needs to know. He has a level of paranoia. This paranoia is generated by his narcissism to ensure that he remains vigilant for threats to his control. He doesn't know this. He isn't aware that he's looking for those threats to control. But the paranoia causes him to question the motives and behaviours of the people as part of his narcissism assessing potential threats to control. And here, the narcissism of which he's unaware, that sits in the background, like a background app governing his behaviour, causes him to ask, "Have you spoken to Gabby already?" as his narcissism strives to ascertain what's actually going on, so it can then guide Brian Laundrie's responses and actions further to nullify any potential threats to control and to garner fuel.
So, you want to do me a favor? Let's go ahead and get you to step out of the vehicle, alrighty? Come on over here. You're not in any trouble right now. So, tell me what's going on.
She just gets worked up sometimes, and I try and really distance myself from her, so like I lock the car and I walk away from her. What happened this morning is that she's trying to start up like her own little website blog and everything, so I give her time, and we really had a nice morning if anything, but she just got worked up because we were trying to get going and get our day going because we want to go like arches before this stuff every time.
Okay. You want to tell me about those scratches on your face?
She had a cell phone in her hand, that's why I was pushing her away, because she wanted me, I locked the keys so I could walk away. I said, let's just take a breather and let's not, go anywhere. Let's just calm down for a minute because she was getting really worked up. And then she had her phone and was trying to get the keys from me, so I got away. I was just trying to, I know I shouldn't push her, but I was just trying to push her away to go, let's just take a minute, step back and breathe. And she got me with her phone.
Can I see your hand?
We pause at 6 minutes. Brian Laundrie provides his explanation of what is going on. He presents, you'll notice, as meek and mild-mannered. His shoulders are down, and he looks apprehensive. His apprehension is as a consequence of his narcissism recognising potential threats to control posed by the situation that he finds himself in, and of course the fact that he's being asked questions. We don't like to be asked questions of ourselves, because this is an attempt to make us account for our behaviour, and that is a threat to our control. And it's similar here for Brian Laundrie. His inherent narcissism causes him to look apprehensive because it wants to know what's going on. That is a manifestation of a degree of anxiety and apprehension that he experiences at this early juncture in the footage because of the potential threat to control posed by questioning. He provides an explanation, and it's basically one of, I was trying to placate her, she got worked up, I was trying to get her to calm down, I was locking the car to walk away and take a breather. His explanation is an assertion of control over the people that are listening, but it's also an example of what is known as the half-truth. You should listen to my video, The Truth, the Half-Truth, and Nowhere Near the Truth. When it comes to the assertion of control, we will sometimes use the truth as you know it, if it suits our purposes. So, for example, if a neighbour has come and assaulted us, we would then, for no reason whatsoever, a narcissist may well then complain to his wife, the neighbour has just punched me, and I didn't do anything. The truth of that circumstances allows him to elicit a pity play, to draw fuel from his wife and assert control over her by pointing out that he's been the victim of an assault. More commonly, the narcissism uses either the half-truth or nowhere near the truth. The half-truth is basically an edited version of what has happened. So, using the neighbour example that I've just provided to you, the reason that the neighbour assaulted the narcissist was because the narcissist insulted the neighbour and started to cut down part of his prize plants. This incensed, not understandably, the neighbour, quite understandably incensed by this, so the neighbour then turns around and punches the misbehaving narcissist. The narcissist runs in and tells tales, saying, I've been punched. He omits the fact that he started the problem. And that's because his narcissism edits events to remove the part where he's at fault, because being at fault is accountability, and that threatens control. And so in that instance, the neighbour responded to an aggressive act with an act of physical violence. But when the narcissist complains to his wife about the neighbour, driven by his narcissism and where he's an unaware narcissist, unaware that he's actually doing this, he edits out his part in causing the neighbour to assault him. And here, and what is seen throughout this video, is a complete failure by Laundrie to explain why Gabby Petito was in an agitated state to begin with, and also a failure on the part of the police officers to get to that point. They don't follow that line of inquiry. Instead, they focus on the injuries that have been sustained and basically see her as the aggressor. They don't ask, what made her attack him? Or what caused her to behave in the way that she did? Those questions were never posed. And what we see here is undoubtedly the narcissism of Brian Laundrie utilising the half-truth. He has done something to provoke her, and of course she alludes to it in part by talking about the fact at 3:44, we've been fighting all morning and he wouldn't let me in the car, and the comment made at 3:34 about he doesn't believe I can do any of it. He's been provoking her, niggling her, invalidating her, belittling her all throughout the course of the day, and she's snapped, and by way of reactive abuse has lashed out at him. However, Laundrie doesn't explain his part in winding her up, in belittling her, invalidating and provoking her, because his narcissism won't let him. It edits out. And instead, he starts the story halfway through, namely the half-truth, and asserts control over those listening by basically saying, she got worked up, I was trying to placate her, I sought to lock the car to walk away from her to take a breather. It portrays him as the good guy. It portrays him as the peacemaker. It portrays her as the agitator. And those listening fall for it. He doesn't explain what caused Gabby Petito to get so worked up in the first place. Her behaviour is not that of an aggressor. Her behaviour is that of somebody who is reacting. But nobody gets to that. And of course, She doesn't even plead her position in that regard because she's so downtrodden, so ground down, that she can't even stick up for herself properly anymore. You can see in the video her attempts to explain. She's presents as somewhat confused, agitated, upset. And she's not forthright in saying, he did this to me and that's why I reacted. And you'll see later on in the video, even as the police officers explain to her what's going on, she doesn't attempt to protest any innocence. She doesn't try to pin blame on him, because she has been ground down into this mentality of accepting that she's the problem. And it shows and shines through in what she says and her behaviours.
Oh, you got a mark right here.
Oh, that's from a wire.
That's from a wire?
Yeah.
You want to tell me about hitting that curb?
Hitting the curb was her grabbing the wheel.
She grabbed the wheel?
Yeah. She said, I can't believe we're getting pulled over, and then she grabbed the wheel.
What about the speed? Did she take over the...
No, I
over the pedal on you?
If I was going fast, I'm sorry. No, it's probably just the moment of, like, I'm still shaking now. The adrenaline, seeing the lights flashing up, and then her gripping the wheel. So if I sped up, I'm sorry about that.
We pause at 6 minutes and 26 seconds. Here we see an example of blame shifting. Laundrie's asked, why did he hit the curb? He says she grabbed the wheel. He blames her. Why were you exceeding the speed limit? He explains the adrenaline was flowing through me because I saw the lights flashing, i.e., you, Mr. Officer, made me speed. Typical response of a narcissist. It's never our fault. He blame shifts onto her and, in effect, onto the police officer. It's also the case that his comment about saying that his adrenaline rose because he saw the lights flashing might have been a lie, because at that juncture, the lights may not have actually been on. Earlier on in the recording, you'll have heard that the siren came on only when the curb had been hit, and it might be the case that both the lights and the siren only came on together afterwards. It's possible the lights were on earlier, but it strikes me that there's a potential also here that Laundrie's also telling a lie. Understand, as an unaware narcissist, he doesn't realise he's telling a lie because his lies are the truth. His narcissism rewrites history to cause him to believe that he drove beyond the speed limit because the lights flashing caused his surge of adrenaline. In effect, he's saying, it's not my fault that that happened, because he cannot accept that he's at fault. Even where a narcissist apologises and appears to accept fault, we don't. It's false contrition. And here, he's blame shifting. He's blame shifting onto Gabby Petito for grabbing the wheel, and he's blame shifting with regard to driving an excessive speed, by pointing out that it was basically his adrenaline that was at fault, and that was driven as a consequence of the flashing of the lights caused by the police officer. It is not Brian Laundrie's fault.
Or if I was speeding beforehand, I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, it took quite a bit to catch up to you. So,
yeah. I'm sorry about that. We're just going into the park again to get water because we have a 6-gallon water container to fill up, so we're just grabbing water for the hike. Okay. And I was trying to keep everything calm and quiet because there's plans still to go for a hike, but it's good. I'm really sorry about that.
We pause at 6 minutes and 48 seconds. Note that Brian Laundrie repeats, I'm sorry about that. Again, his narcissism is causing him to try to demonstrate that he is the peacemaker. Also again, look at his body language. It's trying to make him look meek and inoffensive, as if to suggest, I could never be capable of being horrible to anybody. His narcissism is creating that facade of being a decent person, that he wouldn't hurt anybody, that he wouldn't behave in an inappropriate fashion. It's causing, as a learned behaviour, for him to adopt that. He's not consciously thinking to himself, I better lower my shoulders, look like I'm meek and mild, hold my hands in a sort of Uriah Heep manner. He's doing it instinctively, but it is his narcissism that's driving him to do that. He does not think to himself, I'd better portray myself as inoffensive. No. His narcissism causes him to do that instinctively, and it has to be instinctive because it has to occur quickly and promptly before any threat to control becomes too great.